Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes or bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. There is a moment that shows up in nearly every serious relationship, and it doesn't matter how compatible two people are or how much therapy they've done or how committed they feel. At some point, the people realize something very uncomfortable, that the person that they are with probably triggers them faster and more intensely than anybody else in their life. Not occasionally, predictably. And that can be a shift in tone or delayed response, a look that feels flat or distracted, and then suddenly the body reacts before the mind has had any kind of an opportunity to catch up. The heart rate changes, breathing tightens, their muscles brace, thoughts may speed up. One person moves closer and pushes for reassurance, and then the other person pulls back, goes quiet, or feels the urge to escape the interaction altogether. Ever experienced anything like this? It seems like a lot of couples that end up together are nearly opposites, that the opposites truly do attract. And people interpret this sometimes as a failure, or assume that something is wrong with them, or that something's wrong with their partner, or wrong with the relationship itself. They might use labels like insecurity or emotional immaturity, avoidance, neediness, we're poor communicators, or we're not compatible. And that interpretation is understandable, but it's wrong. What's happening in those moments isn't a character flaw or a lack of insight. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do when attachment and threat detection collide. Human beings are wired to bond, and we are wired to detect danger. So when someone becomes emotionally significant to us, those two systems stop operating separately, and now they share circuitry. When that happens, reactions speed up, emotional memory can become biased, and then small disruptions feel much larger than they objectively are. The nervous system isn't asking if something feels fair, reasonable, or accurate. It's just asking, am I safe? And whether I'm about to be alone, exiled, voted off the island. And the human brain, it's just not neutral. It's not balanced. It's biased intentionally toward negative experiences. That bias is not pessimism. It's not pathology. It's survival design. And I've heard a lot of people in peer-led recovery programs saying things like, that's my disease, or, something attributable to alcoholism. And if that's how someone wants to conceptualize it, then that's fine. But I find labels like that kind of stigmatizing, to reduce it to that's my disease. This is literally how human beings are wired, and that has nothing to do with addiction or anything like that. Pain carries information that keeps organisms alive, and comfort does not carry that same urgency. It's literally that simple, that when something hurts, emotionally or physically, the brain tags that as survival relevant data. And in a close relationship, that can become especially powerful, because a sharp tone or emotional withdrawal, perceived rejection or criticism, or unresolved tension, all of these things register as danger to attachment. And attachment for humans has always been tied to regulation and survival. Positive moments do matter. Of course they do, but they don't demand immediate correction, and they don't mobilize the nervous system the same way that pain does. They don't require vigilance the same way that pain does. And this is where people can really misjudge themselves. They might replay one painful interaction despite months or years of stability and assume that something in the relationship is broken or that they are negative or incapable of letting things go. In reality, their nervous system is prioritizing threat information because closeness increases vulnerability. That's the reason that a 5-second rupture can outweigh years of connection in the memory. The brain isn't sabotaging intimacy, it's just trying to prevent a future injury. Negativity bias becomes strongest in intimate relationships because intimacy raises the stakes. When somebody matters, the neutrality disappears and the system naturally becomes more protective. So to understand why adult relationships activate such old material, you have to move backwards developmentally. Human infants are not self-regulating organisms. We don't survive on our own. We survive because someone responds to us. So when the baby cries, a nurturer comes and through eye contact, voice tone, touch, emotional presence, regulation is learned through the relationship, not isolation. Early development follows this basic rhythm: connection, separation, repair. That rhythm teaches the nervous system essential information. Do people come back? Do my signals matter? If I'm in distress, will that be met or ignored? Does closeness feel calming or overwhelming? Is it predictable or is it unsafe? And when caregiving is consistent, not perfect, but consistent, just reliable enough, the nervous system learns that distress is tolerable and temporary. But when caregiving is not consistent, emotionally unavailable, intrusive, and chaotic nervous systems adapt, and they adapt defensively. This doesn't require abuse, and it doesn't require trauma language. It doesn't require conscious memory. It becomes part of the body's physiology. It becomes an expectation or the baseline of how closeness will feel later in life. So what might look like somebody overreacting in adulthood is really just a nervous system that's responding exactly as it has learned to respond when regulation once depended on somebody else's availability. This is where attachment comes in, not as a personality disorder or pathology, but a regulation strategy. Anxious attachment develops if connection was inconsistent. Sometimes closeness was available, sometimes it disappeared, and then the nervous system adapts by amplifying signals and staying vigilant. Under stress, distance can feel dangerous and silence feels catastrophic. That proximity with the other partner is what regulates the system. Internally, the logic is simple. I stay safe by being close to you. And then avoidant attachment develops when closeness, reliability came with a cost. So maybe it was emotional intensity or unpredictability, pressure, loss of autonomy. The nervous system adapts by emphasizing self-reliance. Under stress, distance is what feels regulating. Withdrawal is not rejecting the partner, it's about self-protection and regulation. So internally, the logic for them is, I stay stable by needing you less. And secure attachment is when a caregiver was consistent enough to allow a little bit of flexibility. Those individuals can tolerate closeness without being engulfed and distance without panic. They recover from rupture quickly and they don't rely on a single strategy to regulate. And a lot of adults are a blend. Stress amplifies their default strategies. Repeated secure experiences can soften them, and none of this is pathology, it's adaptation. attachment patterns don't dominate early dating. Early relationships are usually buffered by novelty and dopamine and low stakes. Attachment gets loud once the relationship starts to really be real, and once there's some investment, vulnerability, and something that you could lose. At that point, your partner is more than just a partner. They have become a stand-in for earlier attachment experiences. So any old inconsistencies or abandonments, intrusions, or emotional absences are going to become reactivated. The nervous system reacts way before your mind can conceptualize or understand what's actually happening. And that's why adult conflict can feel disproportionate. The pain isn't new, it's reactivated and remembered. So this is where couples really get stuck, because without some sort of a structure, they start assigning intent to that physiology of what they're experiencing. An avoidantly wired person will pull away so that they can regulate, and then the anxious partner decides, this person just must not care about me. And an anxiously wired person pursues to regulate, with then the avoidant partner deciding, you're overwhelming or you're trying to control me. And both people are just trying to feel safe, but both are using strategies that worked at a different time in their life. Both are unintentionally destabilizing their bond. This is where John Gottman's work is essential. Not pop psychology, not a TikTok, not relationship advice. This is applied nervous system regulation for inside intimate bonds. And his research did not identify healthy couples by emotionally deep they were. It was identified by what they did moment to moment when they were in distress. One of the most important concepts that he introduced was what he calls bids for connection. And a bid is an attempt for attention, affection, validation, or responsiveness. It can be a comment, a look, question, touch, sigh, a joke, a complaint, and negativity bias causes couples to miss those bids when they are stressed. And when bids are repeatedly missed or ignored, the nervous system learns something dangerous. This connection is not reliable. Gottman showed that stable couples do not avoid conflict. What they do is they turn toward those bids more than they turn away. Turning toward does not require you to be brilliant. It just requires you to be present. Turning away repeatedly, even if it's subtle, destabilizes attachment and it amplifies the threat response. So another core Gottman concept is what he calls repair attempts. And a repair attempt is anything that tries to de-escalate the tension in the room, whether that's just acknowledgement, humor, softness, responsibility, reassurance, a hand on the arm, a change in tone. He found that repair matters more than the conflict style. The nervous system doesn't need perfect communication, it needs relief. And so this is where most of the couples that I work with fail, not because they don't care about each other, but because they are trying to explain themselves before they are repairing. So, relief first from this nervous system anxiety, explanation later. If repair doesn't happen, then the nervous system stays activated. And if the nervous system stays activated, then people start to misinterpret intent, they escalate, or they shut down. Gottman calls this physiological flooding. That's when the body is so overwhelmed that a person goes quiet, shuts down, or disengages. And it's not about indifference, it's about a nervous system that's totally overloaded. Without structure, partners can misinterpret flooding as withdrawal or a lack of care, or they may even escalate further, and then regulation just becomes impossible. Healthy couples aren't intuitive, they are trained They build structure that keeps them from hurting each other accidentally. Love does not regulate the nervous system. Structure does. And this is the point where this episode really lives. Once you understand that love is not what regulates the nervous system, but structure does, the question becomes, how should this look inside a relationship when the shit really hits the fan? This is where Gottman's work becomes useful, because it moves relationships out of the realm of intention and into the realm of behavior under pressure. He didn't study couples when they were calm and reflective. He studied them in moments of crisis and conflict, disappointment, fatigue, and stress, when the nervous system was loud and the reflexes took over. One of the most important findings from all of his research is that stable couples are not less reactive, they're better at repairing. Repair attempts are not grand gestures. You don't have to buy someone a car just because you screwed up. They're small, ordinary, imperfect moves that say, I'm here with you. Or, it's us versus this problem. Or, I want to solve this with you. And a repair can be a softened tone, a quick apology, humor, eye contact, or just any kind of a bid that says, I don't want this to turn into something bigger than it already is. What matters is not elegance, it's timing. From a nervous system perspective, repair works because it interrupts that threat response. It signals safety before the body escalates further. Without repair, the system stays activated. And once the system is activated for long enough, then meaning-making starts to kick in. People stop responding to what's actually happening in front of them, and then responding more to their brain's interpretation of what they think it means. This is why Gottman emphasized fast repair over perfect communication. A relationship doesn't need flawless insight, it needs a rapid interruption of the threat. Another core Gottman principle that directly overlaps with attachment and neurobiology is turning toward instead of turning away. Turning toward doesn't mean solving a problem, it means acknowledging the other person's bid for connection. So a bid may sound trivial on the surface, like, can you believe this traffic? Or did you see that show? Or I'm exhausted. This is stressing me out. Underneath, the nervous system is asking, are you here with me or am I on my own? And when bids are met with attention, even if it's brief, then the nervous system registers safety. When bids are ignored, dismissed, or repeatedly missed, the system learns this connection is not reliable, and then that is where the attachment strategies escalate. An anxiously wired partner escalates bids when they go unanswered. They may start to talk more, press harder, ask more questions, or raise the emotional volume. And an avoidant wired partner experiences that escalation as pressure and overload, which leads to more withdrawal. Both are reacting to missed bids, not malice. This is why Gottman's work is not separate from attachment theory, it is a behavioral translation of it. Gottman also identified patterns that reliably predict when there's going to be breakdown. Most famously, he calls these the four horsemen: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. From a nervous system lens, these aren't bad communication habits, they are signs of chronic threat activation. Contempt, in particular, is a marker of a nervous system that has stopped viewing the partner as safe or valuable. And that is not anger, it's disgust that's layered on top of disconnection. Once contempt becomes habitual, repair is nearly impossible because the system no longer expects safety from the other person. This is why Gottman emphasized protecting the relationship as the core principle. Protecting the relationship does not mean avoiding conflict. It means not indulging impulses that damage safety. Sarcasm, public criticism, venting to outsiders instead of repairing with your partner directly, or using withdrawal as punishment. From a nervous system perspective, those kind of behaviors train the system to stay guarded even though nothing is wrong. Another Gottman concept that fits kind of clearly here is what he calls physiological self-soothing. That's his remedy or antidote for stonewalling. When people are flooded, productive conversation is impossible because the heart rate's elevated, cognitive flexibility has dropped, and the threat response is activated. Secure couples don't try to force resolution during flooding. They take a break, they pause, they regulate, and then they agree to return. And this is critical. They do this with reassurance first, not disappearance. So I always recommend, rather than just pulling away, tell your partner, hey, I'm going to spend a few minutes to go get my head on straight or to kind of work through this. I notice that I'm feeling defensive. I notice that I'm really overwhelmed, and I'm in this with you. I want to figure this out with you, but I don't feel good right now, and I need to just kind of work through that. But I promise that we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. And a pause without that reassurance can feel like abandonment to an anxious nervous system, but a pause with clarity maintains safety. So this is why some couples can get tangled around an idea of self-care. And in pop culture, self-care can sometimes be framed as withdrawal, like taking space, detach, focus on yourself. That kind of framing ignores a core reality of human biology, that humans are co-regulating organisms. In bonded relationships, separation registers as danger unless it is predictable, explained, and time-limited. So if one partner says, I need some space, without reassurance, the other partner's nervous system is hearing, I'm on my own. Healthy self-care inside of a relationship is coordinated, not isolating. So it sounds like, I'm flooded and I need about 20 minutes to calm down, but I'm coming back. Like, I'm in it with you. That system does more for regulation than an hour of silence ever could. Independence expands capacity, and isolation triggers threat. The nervous system knows the difference between the two. So this is what brings us back to anxious and avoidant patterns, not as identities, but as habits when they're under stress. If you lean anxious, then your work is not to suppress emotion or become less sensitive, it's to slow the escalation loop. That means recognizing that early bodily sign of threat, the tightening chest, the urge that you want to talk faster, or your compulsion to resolve immediately, and then naming those fears before behavior. Instead of escalating bids through pressure or protest, anxious regulation works best through a direct reassurance request. Hey, I feel disconnected and I just need to know that we're okay. Or I need to know that you're in it with me. And that sentence can stabilize far more than any kind of pursuit ever will. If you are more of an avoidant type, then your work is not to give up your autonomy or to try to force closeness. It's for you to prevent disappearance. Avoidant regulation improves when reassurance comes before space, not after. Even brief connection, eye contact, one sentence of reassurance, and a clear plan that you're coming back dramatically reduces threat for the other nervous system. The goal is not to eliminate these strategies, it's just to interrupt them earlier before a spiral turns into somebody doing their own meaning making and finding resentment. Gottman's research showed that stable couples don't avoid these moments, they navigate through them with discipline. They recognize if they have missed bids, they repair quickly, and they take responsibility for the impact of their reflexes, even if the reflex itself made sense. This is where agency comes back into the picture. Yes, attachment is wiring, and yes, negativity bias is real. Yes, the nervous system reacted faster than cognition did. And people still have responsibility for how they structure their relationships. Secure functioning is not about feeling safe all the time. It's about how knowing that safety is going to be restored. When couples lack structure, they assume that love should carry the weight, and then when love doesn't regulate the threat, they conclude something is wrong with the relationship. In reality, the system is just under-engineered. When structure is present, named principles, fast repair, turning toward, protecting the relationship, something shifts. The nervous system settles down quickly, conflict is less threatening, and closeness doesn't feel dangerous. That is what secure attachment looks like in real life. Not perfection, not constant harmony, but a relationship where fear doesn't get to run the system unchecked. If there's a single takeaway that I hope that you get from this entire conversation, it's this. Relationship reactivity is not a character flaw, it's a nervous system that is prioritizing safety based on prior learning. Pain is remembered faster than pleasure. Attachment activates old circuitry, and patterns repeat until the structure changes. The solution is not endless insight or self-blame. It's disciplined, practiced relational structure, the kind that Gottman identified, studied, and taught for decades. And that is how love can become stable under stress, and that is doing the work. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we are all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.